Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, warshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we are going to get back to doing something that I had sort of quit doing for a while. We're going to do a first look video. I was recently talking to a bunch of guys, well, a lot of my regulars, right, in my streaming world. I stream both now to YouTube and Twitch, so I'll get folks in both locations. And the idea of me doing first look videos once again cropped up. I used to do these every patch, right? Like every patch there would be anywhere from 2 to 4 new ships, and I would try to do first look videos. And then maybe about 2 or 3 times a year, Wargaming would release a brand new line of ships, and I'd release a whole first look at each one of the line. But it's gotten to where Wargaming cranks out ships so quickly that somebody with a regular job like me, like the YouTube and Twitch thing is not what I do for a living, as fun as it is not realistic. I just didn't have the time to do 8, 10, 12 videos sometimes every single patch. So I gave it up. I said, you know what? This is just not going to work out for me. But chat convinced me to kind of take a different tack on things. And so this is going to be a bit of a renaissance of the First Look series here on the channel. We're going to start here today with the brand new super ship that's coming into the game. I think next patch, this is 12.5. I think it's coming in I say 13.5. I think it's coming in 13.6. This is Tier 11, or super ship, light cruiser, American light cruiser USS Jacksonville. At the moment, as you watch this video, there's a poll running on my YouTube channel, for the next one of these that I'll do next week. I've given you guys 3 choices. You guys go vote in that, and you can let me know. But in the meantime, let's talk about Jacksonville, right? The super ships, as controversial as they are, and I will not pretend that I am a fan of the concept. I really am not, okay? They are meant to be almost universally successors, kind of the next evolution of design, of naval design, of whatever the Tier 10 ship in each of the various branches is. And so Jacksonville here comes in on the heels of Worcester, right? Tier 10 American light cruiser Worcester that was built, right? Those ships existed, and the theory here, Wargaming's theory here, is that Jacksonville would have been a logical follow-up ship to that class had it been needed or required or built. Now, we're going to do a walk around the ship, but as you first look at it, you're going to look at it. People who are familiar with the American light cruiser line are going to look at these turrets and go, whoa, 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 flag on the play. Those look like Seattle turrets. Guess what? Those are Seattle turrets. That should not instill you with a lot of confidence, right? Because what is one of Seattle's single biggest problems? Her gun angles, right? Her gun angles, particularly when trying to kite, are terrible. We're going to talk about that, okay? I'm not going to answer the question for you now, but I'm going to show you the differences when we get there, so don't lose all hope right away. Let's start, as we do, talking about survivability. I'm going to spend most of my time comparing this ship to Worcester because there really aren't many other Tier 11 light cruisers to compare it to, right? Edgar is probably the only real one we could even be talking about. So let's talk about Jacksonville. 52,000 HP is pretty solid. This is about a, let me count around the numbers here, about a 15 to 18% jump in health from where you were at Worcester. Worcester was 45,000 basically, and you're up here now at over 50, 52. That's pretty solid. It's good. You're going to need the extra HP. Yes, you are nominally always going to be top tier, but you need the extra HP. 19% torpedo protection, same as Worcester, right? But again, I say this all the time in cruisers. Bloody hell, don't take torpedoes. Your ship's not built for it. You don't have the health. You're just bad at it. Even with this torpedo protection, the only kinds of torpedoes that you might go, all right, fine, are some of the European destroyers now have those little dinky torpedoes that do like 8,000 damage. Something like that will probably not hurt you. But if you're chasing or hunting some kind of Japanese destroyer, some kind of Shimakaze or Yamagiri, man, keep your hydro handy. You really don't want to take that guy's torpedoes, regardless of how good your torpedo protection feels. But 52,000 HP with a heal is going to be really nice. Armor layout. We're also getting some buffs here from Worcester. If you recall, Worcester's belt armor, 127 millimeters. Jacksonville now up to 152. So this is the same belt armor now that you're getting on American heavy cruisers, 152, 6 inches, right? I'm finally getting that same kind of belt armor on American light cruisers. Your bow armor, as befitting a light cruiser, is only 25 millimeters. You are not meant to be able to bow tank battleship caliber shells in a light cruiser, and you can't, right? This 25 millimeters will turn away, I think, 15-inch shells. So 380 millimeters, you will occasionally find some battleships in your matchmaking that will have guns that small. You'll actually find quite a number of cruisers that you'll be able to do that for. But like in general, you don't want to be relying on your bow armor. If you find yourself in that situation, other things have gone horribly, horribly wrong. Okay, so just try not to get there. Let's have a quick peek around. Let's have a look at the Citadel. I'll leave the barbettes in for now. Citadel's actually pretty solid, okay? I mean, just barely peeking over the waterline, right? So this is nice in that, one of the things we talk about, you look at some of the British light cruisers, the high-tier British light cruisers, their Citadels amidships under the superstructure, they jump up. There's big chunks of the middle of the ship that those Citadels are way above the waterline. Jacksonville, blessedly, doesn't have this problem. She does have the magazines, obviously, buried underneath the barbettes, but in general, the Citadel is fairly low. So you've got that going for you. Unless the battleship player aims just right or gets really good dispersion, you actually might not get death struck. You will get death struck eventually if you turn at the wrong time. You're still a light cruiser. But lower in the water means just that much less chance that something comes through and overpins you rather than destroys you. And at closer ranges, of course, it can be very difficult to hit this. Plunging fire coming down through your superstructure into the roof of this will probably do horrible things to you as well. So, overall, Citadel, I won't call it an improvement from Worcester necessarily, but it is the armor being better is noteworthy. It is a bit of a buff. It'll make you more resistant, let's say, to the occasional heavy cruiser duel you will find yourself in. Maneuverability and concealment, 34 knots, 790 on the turning circle, 8.5 on the rudder shift. This is nice. The speed is a little higher now. We're 34 knots instead of 33, where Worcester is. Turning circle is a little worse, as you would expect. You are a longer overall ship, I believe. You certainly have more beam. The ship is significantly wider than Worcester is. If you call Worcester very skinny with those double turrets, quite long but very skinny. Jacksonville here, wider in the beam, but I'd say probably roughly the same length. So turning circle a little larger, and then 8.5 on the rudder shift is actually a bit better. So that's nice. That's nice to have. I have played this ship. I can't talk about it. On paper, she looks like she's going to handle pretty well. I think if you're used to driving a Worcester, this ship should feel fairly comparable. I think the larger turning circle is not really going to be a big issue. If you're trying to dodge torpedoes, then yeah, it might be. But in general, the rudder shift time, I think, helps make up for it a little bit. 12.3 on the concealment compared to 12.1 on a Worcester. So a full stealth rig, Jacksonville, is almost identical to a stealth rig Worcester. You're basically looking at the math works out to where it's like 9.94 kilometers or something like this. It's just a hair over 9.9. So call it the next best thing. Just think of it like 10-kilometer detection, and you'll be fine. It is a slight bit worse than Jacksonville, but that's not really shocking. As light cruisers go, it's pretty good, right? You're still basically in the same ballpark as the ship that you moved up here from. So that's good. No major nerfs there. Feels pretty awesome. Artillery. Okay, here's where we got to spend a little bit of time talking about what's going on, because the main battery guns, despite the caliber and the shells and all the rest of that stuff being the same, the turrets, obviously, as we hinted at earlier, are very, very different. Jacksonville's main battery is built around these American dual-purpose, triple-barreled, auto-firing 6-inch guns. Wargaming has, I think, I think they found plans for these in the National Archives or something, and I think the intent was that the U.S. Navy was going to take the autoloader concept that they had proven for Des Moines and translate it down to 6-inch guns. These guns have a 5-second reload compared to I think it's 4.6 on Worcester. So there's a slight nerf to the reload speed, but you do have 15 barrels. It's a Mogami-style turret arrangement, which means I have 3 turrets up forward, but only 1 super firing turret. So this B turret up here on the forward end of the ship has somewhat limited firing angles, right? It can't fire directly over the bow except at certain ranges. You can see here the gun's elevated. So there is a range at which you can get all of these guns firing directly over the bow. I don't know what that number is. And then, of course, the super firing pair back aft. The B turret is going to be awkward, right? You're going to have to show the angles, the right angle over the starboard or port side of the ship, like most of the time, to get all 15 barrels into action. 17.2 main battery firing range is nice. That's another half a kilometer past what Worcester gets, so you get a little more range. And you're getting basically the same shells, right? You're getting 2200 HE, 12% fire chance, 30 mils of penetration on the base shell. 152 meters on the nice dispersion ellipse is roughly comparable. It's a little worse than Worcester, but again, you have more range. I would expect this number to be worse. Turret traverse is absolutely identical. So the turret handling is really, really, really good. Like, that turret traverse is quite quick. Now, we have to talk about firing angles. As we noted earlier in the video, these turrets are the same ones on Seattle down at Tier 9. And Seattle is famous for having garbage firing angles, particularly over the aft end of the ship. When you're running away from something, Seattle very commonly has to just try to go as stern on as she can and just fire the stern 2 turrets, because if you try to unmask the bow turrets to the wrong thing at the wrong time, you could get absolutely slapped. I'm happy to report, based on the numbers that I'm seeing out of Game Models 3D, where I'm pulling this information from, it doesn't look that bad here for Jacksonville. For starters, the bow turrets have the exact same forward angles as Seattle. I'll put the 2 images up here side by side. Seattle on the left, Jacksonville on the right, and you can see very clearly both ships able to get all of their firepower over the side of the ship at a 35-degree angle off the forward bow. So that means that the overwhelming majority of opponents you fight will not be able to overmatch your armor. I would say overmatch is not the word. You know how ricochet angles start at 45 degrees, okay, is what I'm getting at. So you have a very, very good chance to start bouncing the shells, even though you're getting all the barrels on target, right? Seattle's problem starts when she's trying to kite away. I'll put the Seattle image up here on the left, okay? 131 degrees is the angle that she can get all 4 turrets firing. That means she's giving up, let me run the numbers, 49 degrees? 49 degrees of angle back over her of the hull to get all of her turrets firing aft. Well, guess what? That means that will not generate auto bounces, will it? For just about, not for battleships, certainly not for things like American heavy cruisers or anything with improved ricochet angles. That's bad. Seattle hates this. All right. For Jacksonville, have a look here at the stern angles on the right, and it is significantly better. We're back to 144 degrees. So it's 36 degrees off the stern and 35 degrees off the bow. Effectively the same angle off the bow or off the stern, and you can get all of these turrets into action. Now, that's not going to mean that you're immune or somehow safe from large caliber guns firing at you when you're kiting away. What it means is you have an easier time getting all of your turrets to action when you're running away from something. That's all it means. It means you're less likely to get absolutely slapped. It doesn't mean that you won't get absolutely slapped, okay? Don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. You are still a light cruiser. My point is simply that one of Seattle's largest problems is not present here on Jacksonville, despite having the same turret, okay? Worcester doesn't really have this problem because her turrets are much narrower, right? They're only 2 barrels side by side. The hull is narrower, the turrets are narrower, you can get much better gun angles. Jacksonville, despite moving up to the Seattle turrets, retains that aspect of Worcester. So don't panic when you see the Seattle turrets. It's really not as bad as you think. DPM-wise, just a quick note on the HE side. HE DPM here, even though you are just a slight bit lower in terms of reload, 0.4 of a second, your HE DPM does go up a bit. Looks like it's up by about I'd say about 15 to 20%, which makes sense, right? Because you have 3 more barrels than you did down at tier 10. So a lot to like about Jacksonville's main battery. And there's more. We're going to talk about this when we get to her consumables in a minute. Airstrike, yep, you get depth charges, aerial depth charges out to 8 kilometers. These are good American bombs, just like you get off of their destroyers, generally around 5,000 damage. If you can get these to land, the opposing submarine will curse you because they hurt really, really bad, okay? So use these when you need them. They're really, really good. A defense. I'm excited for this section, guys. I nearly about cried myself to... I was laughing so hard, I almost cried when I saw the AA values on this ship. If you watched my how to play Minotaur video, you heard me extol the virtues of Minotaur's mid-range AA bubble. Jacksonville makes it look like chump change. I can't wait to show you this. Check this out. Now, outer bubble and flak is identical to Worcester. This is odd, right? This is a little strange. Worcester was running 12 of these dual-purpose main batteries. These are dual-purpose main batteries, okay? So I was getting 6 flak puffs, 1890 damage, out to 6.9 kilometers. Right here, Jacksonville, totally identical. 6 flak puffs, 1890 on each puff, out to 6.9 kilometers. I'm a little disappointed in this, if I'm honest. I feel like 1 or 2 more flak puffs, given the extra barrels, would have made sense. Her outer ring, 133 damage. That's about the same as Worcester, so... no real buff to the outer bubble. However, look at that medium bubble. Look at the medium bubble. 882. Basically 900 DPS out to 4 kilometers. Any carrier player that tries to attack you or come inside that bubble is going to regret his life choices for about 4.8 seconds, which is about how long it's going to take you to murder his entire squadron of planes. This number is outrageously hilarious. I realize that there's a whole bunch of you guys out there that think AA is total garbage in this game. Let me tell you something. If you spend some time looking at the math between plane health and DPS, this number means dead planes. This number means a whole lot of dead planes. This number means Dutch cruisers that try to aerial bomb you with their planes that are very, very hard to kill may not ever get a bomb off at all. That's what this number means. This number is insane, and it can only get better. If you stack the modules, I played around with this in port, that's how I know this. If you stack the modules and everything correctly, this number will go up to nearly 1,300 DPS in the middle bubble. If you are an aircraft carrier player and you see a Jacksonville on the enemy team, you cannot afford to find out if that guy has invested in his AA or not. I'll tell you straight up, I don't think you can afford it. Unless you have crap planes you're willing to throw away. Man, I mean, if you want to do it, go ahead, but I wouldn't mess with that guy. Holy crap. This mid-range AA bubble is lunacy, and I can't wait. I can't wait to make it rain aluminum confetti with this ship. I'm excited. I'm going to be testing this ship, guys. After I'm done with this video, probably the next thing I'm going to do when I'm done recording this video, I'm going to go build this thing, and I'm going to go play it until I can get a carrier player to cry. Like, I just can't wait. This number is amazing. So yeah, the AA bubble is arguably one of the best in the entire game. It's that good. It's that good. Do not sleep on this. Now, there are a couple other things that we have to talk about, right? Because remember, the American light cruiser line is largely about utility, right? They're one of the first lines of ships to come with this amazingly wide array of consumables. Just like Worcester, you get all the same stuff. You get damage control party, you get the standard American defensive fire. Can you imagine pushing this button with a 1300 AA mid-range bubble? Oh my god. I almost want to get a double tier 10 carrier game just to try it. Just to try it. Standard American radar for the light cruiser line, which means 9 kilometers, not 10, like where there's not Des Moines, right? So you do not have the ability to stealth radar things, but if you're used to Worcester, you're used to that here on Jacksonville. You do get a standard repair party and a typical tier 10 hydro out to 5 kilometers. Now, you also have a funny button right here. This is really, really noteworthy. Let's talk about why. Generally, when you play a light cruiser, especially a high-tier light cruiser in World of Warships, one of the pressing questions you have to ask yourself is, do I take the inertial fuse for high explosive shells commander skill? What are you talking about? All right. Over in the commander build, you have this little skill here for 4 points. IFHE, as it is commonly called. And what it does is it increases the penetration of your high explosive shells by 25%. So these shells ordinarily have a 30 millimeter penetration. For most of the things you want to be firing light cruiser shells at, let's say destroyers and submarines, this is plenty of penetration. I say most things, not all. There are a few destroyers out there that will laugh this off, but most of them won't. Okay, so this is most of the time, this is all the penetration you'll ever need. However, if you want to sit in smoke or sit behind an island and farm big fat dumb battleships, 30 millimeters of penetration at tier 11, generally not enough, right? You're certainly not going to penetrate anybody's deck armor. You're going to penetrate their superstructure and you're going to light some fires. And that's about all you're really going to be able to say. However, there are some battleships in the game. I'm looking at you, French and British primarily, but there's some others around that tend to run 32 millimeters of armor across most of their upper extremities. Their casemate armor, sometimes the upper deck, sometimes up on the bow. And so with a 25 millimeter buff to this 30 millimeter number, you now pen 37 or 38 millimeters of armor, which means that if I pick the right target, my HE shells won't shatter on that battleship. They will now be full pins, as well as having light fire chances. What's the penalty for this? For getting the extra penetration, my fire chance goes down by half. So my shells now penetrate more, right? But they have a 6% fire chance instead of a 12% fire chance. Now, one of the interesting things about playing a light cruiser at tier 10 is you're going to find people in both schools of thought as to whether or not this is a good skill, okay? If your intention with a light cruiser is to primarily be a destroyer hunter and to hunt other light cruisers, other light units, this skill is of dubious value. If you prefer to sit at long range or mid-range, behind islands, behind cover, in smoke, and use this skill to farm copious quantities of damage off of battleships, big dumb battleships, then this skill is for you. Jacksonville's funny button means you don't necessarily always have to make that choice. You get a little bit of best of both worlds. A lot of ships, their funny button, what it does is you push it and it increases their reload speed. But on a ship with a 5-second reload speed, what do you care? Jacksonville's funny button doesn't increase her reload speed. It increases the armor penetration of her high explosive shells. For 40 seconds, you get plus 40% penetration on Jacksonville's HE shells. So that means, let me run a quick calculation here to make sure I'm not giving you bad information. That means her penetration on her HE shells goes from 30 millimeters up to 42 millimeters for 40 seconds. This almost makes her, in my opinion, one of the best light cruisers in the entire game. Because now sometimes you invest in IFHE in a light cruiser and you don't get a lot of value out of it every single game. Jacksonville, in my mind, almost now never has to invest in it, but she can just fire a lot of shells. Well, she's going to do that anyway. Build up this thing, have it fully charged, and then when you need it, you have it in reserve. I need the penetration right now. You push the button, and there's the penetration you need to farm a ton of health off of some target in front of you. This is really nice. This is amazing. This button basically shaves you 4 points every time you build out the commander. That's really, 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 really good value for this ship. Yeah, there's a lot to like here, guys. There's a lot to like. I'm not going to talk about potential builds. I think there's a lot of different ways to build this ship. One thing I am going to miss is, if you remember down at Worcester, the unique upgrade gives you an extra charge of all your consumables, meaning that you don't necessarily have to take Superintendent. I think on Worcester, I might end up doing that. I might not. I'm not sure, but I'm betting that I will, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough to turn that down. It's going to be tough to turn down an extra charge of all these consumables. Whereas Worcester, I generally didn't take it, and I took the unique upgrade, and that worked out pretty well. So yeah, I really like Jacksonville. I think she's got a lot going for her. I think this is going to be a really, really fun ship. And that's from someone who doesn't think tier 11 ships are a really good idea. I love light cruiser play. I love murdering planes. I love murdering destroyers. I love burning battleships. Jacksonville does all of these things. She might be the single best AA cruiser in the entire game, with defensive fire and that ridiculous mid-range bubble that you can buff even higher. Just absolute lunacy. I think we might finally see the return of a proper no-fly zone here since the carrier rework. In the last 5 years, we've had some ships that were like, you really don't want to mess with me. I shoot down a lot of planes. This ship might be, if you come near me, I push my little defensive fire button and laugh while you fall out of the sky. And I think that very well could be where Jacksonville lands. Anyway, guys, that's our first look at Jacksonville. Hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe. I'll catch you next time.